Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the session exploring relationships between body, tech, and art. Together, we will dive into the era of the impact of technology and scientific research on our lives that is more and more relevant and evident at the moment. As you all know, devices are progressively more wearable, data production is in constant and also uncontrolled sometimes increase. Researches are in depth in the field of artificial intelligence, and we are living in a scenario in which human beings are increasingly in close living contact with technologies in every single step of our life. And technologies are affecting and changing our lives in ways that we couldn't even conceive before. Our new bodies are being codified, are being mapped, are being augmented in their also physical and relational capacities. And we are being able to develop new expressive codes that the world of art is especially trying to develop and grow and look for, work for. Today, we are talking with a group of artists from different parts of Europe that are working to produce artistic practices, artistic experiences that are investigating the language, the process, the aesthetics, and the modes of this dialogue between body and technology, and also their connection with the environment, with the ecology, which is understood as a mix between data, the data we are embedded in, nature, the biosphere, the ecosystem, and the social environment, the relationships we are into. We are gonna talk about this very interesting and fruitful topic with three artists. Matt Adams, co-founder of Blast Theory from the UK, Cristina Maldonado, intermedia artist from Prague, and Gregorio Comandini De Luca from the collective Known, which is talking from Roma. The collective is also made together with Saverio Virilio and Mauro Pace, but Gregorio is representing them today, this morning. Thank you for being with us from a very diverse cities of Europe to talk about this topic. I would love to start with, starting from your artistic practices, to dive into the first question. I just talked about the body involvement, the interaction, and the experiential dimension that are strictly part of your artistic research at different levels and in very different and diverse modes. There is a sort of cognitive delegation and reliance and trust on technology that is enchanting us, that is attracting us as audience and also as artists, but is also scaring at the same time. How do you work with these two dimensions or more dimensions of relation? And the second question, which is into the first one, what is the political, let's say, with a big P, the political statement, the political posture that is behind your artistic practice, that is behind this relationship between body and machine? I would ask Matt Adams to start, to take the mic, to take the floor, and then we will go on with this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. What an amazing array of rich and complicated questions that you raise, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation together with you all today. Blast Theory is a group of three artists. We're based in Brighton in the UK, and we've been working together for 30 years. I collaborate with Juro Farr and Nick Tandavanic, and our practice is always made collaboratively. And for over 20 years, we have collaborated regularly with the Mixed Reality Lab at the University of Nottingham, which is an interdisciplinary lab based in the School of Computer Science that looks at virtual reality, mixed reality, augmented reality. And we have collaborated with the researchers there to create work often. And so I've had a fantastic experience in understanding academic strands of research and also industrial strands of research when we have collaborated with partners like the BBC, British Telecom, Sony and Nokia on research projects. So we are always interested to explore the kinds of questions that you lay out. I suppose my first thought about what you say is that, is that the human body itself is a kind of meaning-making machine, and that we are constructing our experience of the world around us all of the time. And we think sometimes that our vision is a sort of direct relationship between our eye and the world around us, but of course it's not. Our eyes work in very specific ways at a physical level, and then as sight arrives into the mind, we are constructing what we see. We are focusing on the things that we look at and ignoring other things. This is how close-up magic works, for example. So the body is itself making meaning around us. And we have often tried to explore that in our own work. One example would be that we were commissioned by Sundance Film Festival and among others to create a piece of work of locative cinema in 2010. And we created a work called A Machine to See With. That work was really about the function of the eye and the function of cinema in the way in which we look at the world, which is that we ingest so much film and TV through our lives that we come to adopt certain cinematic ways of thinking about the world and of seeing the world. I remember very much my first trip ever to the United States and seeing a school bus, the iconic yellow school bus in person, and it having a kind of luster, a kind of Hollywood glamour. And of course, it is nothing but a school bus, but I had only ever seen it in film and TV. And so it acquires this kind of sense of mythos that we take with us. And that's something that without being able to control it, we're doing that all of the time. We see tens of thousands of fictional kisses before we ever kiss someone ourselves in a romantic sense, and so on. So we're constructing our experience. And the Machine to See With took this observation to create a film which has no visuals. The film is in fact delivered out in the city. Each person who comes to take part arrives at a street corner with their mobile phone, and the phone rings, and the voice down the phone says, "You are going on a robbery," and your face shows no sign, and begins to give instructions of a bank heist. And as you listen, you walk through the city, you meet other people who are taking part in it. At one point, you go into a car park where there is an empty car. You get inside and shut the door. And then 2 minutes later, someone else gets in and sits next to you. And now you two are working together on this bank heist. And all of the time, this is driven by these phone calls that are constructing your experience of the city and are constructing the narrative. But the work only really operates because we've all seen so many bank robbery stories. We've all seen so many heists that the grammar of that experience is ready for us to be activated within us. So it comes back to that starting point that I mentioned about thinking about the eye as a meaning-making machine. And the moment that we're in now, where, for example, we're thinking about artificial intelligence and how artificial intelligence deals with bias, it seems to me a completely bankrupt idea to assume that artificial intelligence is merely a question of removing bias, because that suggests that bias is a sort of unwanted additive into a process that we can somehow remove. Whereas, of course, bias is an intrinsic part of how we as human beings operate, and to expect socially constructed technologies to be able to deal with that, I think is far-fetched. What we're going to have to think about is what kinds of bias are acceptable and how are we going to operate with those forms of bias. Just one thing that I would sort of finish by talking about is that the other aspect, I think, of how our bodies move through society and how our bodies are changing in terms of cultural form is to do with our data trail. Some people call it a data exhaust, where everywhere we move, we are leaving data behind us, and that data is being collected, sometimes with our knowledge, often without our knowledge, and often in ways that we don't fully understand. And that, to me, feels like an entire new cultural opportunity, and that there is new kinds of artworks are made possible in that respect. And we've made a couple of works that are trying to look at exactly that question, which is what does it mean for us when our data is collected, and what does that what possibilities might be created artistically in that sense. So we've created a smartphone app called Karen, where you interact with a character through your smartphone, and she asks you questions. She's a life coach, and through a number of short sessions over a period of days, she asks you questions about your life. And as you come through that experience, it becomes clear that actually every question is a data point on a series of psychological profiling questionnaires, and that the app in the background has been psychologically profiling you, building up a picture of your psychological profile, and then using that for the telling of the story. So to me, that is it's both a cautionary tale about how we are seduced, as you said in your introduction. We're seduced by technologies, the sort of black box of technology, where it seems to be almost magical, is incredibly seductive. And we're also fully aware of the dystopian price that we're paying in this contract. And I think it's our role as artists to try and unpick some of the trade-offs that we're making in that process. So
thank you, Matt. Thank you, Matt. A lot of insights. I love the idea of the meaning making machine, the body as a meaning making machine, which is really, true. But it's interesting that you call the body machine. Can you say again the name of the app? Is Karen, like with K? Like
yes,
the US
that's right.
Karen. Okay.
Yes. Karen, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Cristina, from your point of view, from your artistic practice, this meaning-making machine, how our body is interacting with technology.
So happy to be here with you. I would like to read a text I prepared for these questions. So I would like to start by saying that my relationship with technology derives from my work as a dancer and as a performer focused on object and material theater. A decade ago, audiovisual technology caught my eye, the eye again, when I realized that I could interfere a beam of light of a projector with my body and immerse myself in a film. This initiated a dialogue between my body, mediation, and perception. This intuitive and playful use of technology accompanies me until now. The tools I use are nothing new. Similar principles have been used already for decades. But what matters to me is the relationships that are created through these tools. Interruptor, which is a performance that it's 1 hour long. It's this photograph we're looking at now. It's for one audience member. People are alone in the space and are invited to sustain a visual conversation using the materials of the table however they want. My hands appear projected on their table, and we engage in a quite intense and often moving dialogue. From this mediation strategy, I found the place of technology in my practice. I started to wonder how these technologies available to lay people affect us at an emotional, existential, or even ontological levels. I investigated further presence, representation, and communication, and in a very intuitive way, ethics also came into the picture. For instance, Interruptor produced an unexpected zone of encounter in which a lot of personal material was exchanged. It was very efficient in testing the tolerance we both performer and audience had to the unexpected and our inner dialogues, the fear to be wrong or misunderstood. It could also put in evidence judgmental interpretations and the frustration of not being in control. But it also opened a silent playground of agreement, this encounter, destruction and construction, shared and individual creativity. This mediated and anonymous exchange also proved that it's possible to bond at a very basic level with another person, even when you know nothing about them. I loved to spend the whole day performing 1 hour for each person, like 9 persons a day. This was a kind of a relationship that I had never experienced before. The possibility of mediation, this diluted presence, allowed the audience to be with me, but also with themselves, and had space to pay attention to nuances, to the detailed information of their senses, emotions, thoughts, and intuition. I started to formulate a dramaturgy based on perception, and the primary function of technology for me was to model emotions and affections. So a couple of years ago, we premiered another one-to-one project named Insider. This project was, again, in the frame of The Stranger Gets a Gift. That's the platform in which I create these one-to-one performances. It was a collaboration with a group of artists and a Czech production platform, Teren. In Insider, you are immersed in a 360 degrees film for 1 hour. This film is not interactive. The film shows a pair of hands, apparently yours, dealing with different materials and objects. The offer is to follow those hands and in real life to get the objects in the exact moments that they are presented in the video, making the feeling that somehow the experience of the hands in the video is maybe your own. Sometimes the objects that you would receive were different. So this created a very strong disassociation of sight and touch. In this performance, you have the chance to microscopically observe simple everyday things, textures, gestures, taste, and perceive them quite differently. And you are also constantly evaluating which experience belongs to the other and which one belongs to yourself. The dramaturgy was constructed by following embodiment and disembodiment narratives. The performance is literally a 1 hour intervention in the audience's body. As an artist and as a Mexican living in Czech Republic, and as a human being, I am interested in the ethics of being together. How we do that, how we understand what is common to us and what is personal, how we bond, regardless of differences or distance. And mediation for me is a way to explore other qualities of being with others and with oneself. In these two works, I repurposed simple devices, investigating their effect on perception and communication, and even extracting from them a dramaturgy that sensitized the audience to their reactions and thoughts about the possibility to bond with a stranger, or to borrow the experience of another person, or to identify one's own experience as someone else's. I think that those were 5 minutes, I believe.
Super. Super, Christina. No, it was also great that you could show us some images, because in our talking a lot also with your text below, and thank you. Also, you brought about the word ethics, which I didn't say before, but it was underground, let's say, which I believe is very relevant. There's going to be also a panel all about this theme of ethics in the afternoon. So I would love to link also to that conversation. Gregorio, tell us a little bit about your practice and how you work on this topic. I want to add regarding Italy that Gregorio, together with non-collective, and others, are few of the artists that in Italy can work on this at this level on these topics. Italy is not yet a country where there is investment on research as much as in the UK, for example. So I'm really happy to be able to have the voice of non-collective because it's one of the few excellence in Italy talking about this topic. Thank you, Gregorio.
Thank you, Linda. I'm one of 3 founders of Non-Collective. NAN is a group of architects and multimedia artists, coders, that produce immersive installation, art installation, how can I say, transmedia adventure. And now we are showing some of our works in Milano, at Milano Base, with an exhibit called Bodies, Corpi in Italiano. So the question is very good. So I would like to start from the body. We are cells, blood, organs, and nervous system driven by biochemical impulses. And I totally agree with Matt. The body is a meaning machine. We just tested it during the pandemic. If we see only indoor space, only artificial light, our thoughts becomes different. And then if we look at the sky or at the landscape outside. So today we are feeling more and more a gap between our mind and our body. Even more after a pandemic time spent watching a screen, and even more now that the automatization of the work of the life is making our work almost obsolete, and we are ordering and consuming at home. So you said that technology and devices are becoming extension of our body, like prostheses. And I would like to say, understrike that primary is an extension of our mind, since so the man discovered the stick to beat someone. So we delegate so many cognitive processes to the machine that we are losing our cognitive capacities. For example, to navigate in the space, to remember. To me, my memory is located mostly outside of my body, in the web or in external device. And our memory is becoming procedural. So we find a way to recall a memory. And obviously, there are many good practices about digital order in terms of sharing goods, mobility, cities, free access to knowledge, Wikipedia rules. But the digital order makes everything light, without weight or mass, always accessible from anywhere, anytime. And time for data, for information, for technology, it's fast and accelerated. and grows faster than biology, than plants, than animals, than humans. And time for humans is constant and slower. So this distance is becoming painful. We are hyperstimulated by information. We receive so many impulses that our knowledge remains superficial. We cannot go deeper in information. We have no time for it. So our mind needs time to absorb and rework an information. Reading a text on the screen is not the same that reading a text in the paper. You remember less. Try it. I do. So the world is becoming more and more binary. To me, I say black or white, good or bad. We are losing all the gray nuances. So we are not able to discern from reality or fake, and as post-truth, we follow the information. And it's always more hard to create and produce singularity to a critic sense. So in our vision, in this contemporary condition, the mission of art is to stimulate a critic sense about technology, to develop systems that use technology as tool to discover our consciousness about technology, and to drive people in a bad experience where all senses are stimulated till the limit of human perception, and to make feel the people that we make technology as technology makes us. I could go on, Linda. I don't know the timing.
Well, I mean, if you want, we can stop here, and then later for the second question, you can come up with more insights. You said a lot of interesting things altogether. Sometimes I feel is an apocalyptic view, but it's also useful because helps us to also look at the B side of the work of the artist and the role of the artist. Taking from the words of Gregorio, Gregorio is talking about this flow of information that we are into, that we sometimes just follow without actually leading. Sometimes we are part of the flow. Sometimes we just follow the flow. The second question was about this flow we are into, this flow of informations we are into and we are facing. What will be, in your perspective, also considering the post-pandemic, the health situation we are into, and that has impacted each of our work? What will be the nature of the social glue that holds societies together in the future? And what is the role of technology and creativity, technology and art, to bond together this relationship between reality and fiction that Gregorio was talking about? I don't know whether Cristina is connected, because I saw her image. I would like Cristina to take the floor, but if she's not, I will ask Gregorio to go on this.
Okay.
Yes, go on, because I think Cristina has some connection problem.
Okay. How can I say? To me, the point is to be conscious about the fact that technology is not made by God or nature. Technology is made by industries, and in particular, it's made by some specific group of people located in some specific part of the world. and that group of people programs our and process our life, even rituals of our life. And this group is not public, is not national, is not a common, it's private, and run as fast as possible in the capitalist paradigm, liberal capitalist paradigm, with no ethic direction. So, in my opinion, to make some social glue, as you said, the trick should be to copy the private platform and turn them into equal and social platform for citizen. And so to turn the unconditioned growth of liberal economy into a common good. And I think that the public should use its power, and the power is the people. The main mission for each digital platform is to have users, but the public already has. We could imagine the digitalization of the public, not only about the bureaucracy or finance taxes like we do in Italy. For example, we do the speed SPID only for this. We could imagine public services. For example, we have the Chamber of Commerce, Camera di Commercio, that already has all user, all buyer, all sellers. And so we could imagine a circular economy made by public service that connect buyers and sellers without passing for international company that brings money abroad and takes all the profits. So to me, this could be the social glue, caring about the common goods. And with this aim, with this perspective, 4 years ago, we started a non-profit project called Symposium, sympos.io, that aims to build a community and discuss and reconsider our everyday practices, in particular in relation with technology. And we like to face the topic a real utopia, because if the technology will allow us to have more time, I guess it should, to work less. The time, to me, should be spent producing well-being, staying in contact with people, producing culture and vision of what we thought was impossible to achieve, but maybe we were just too unbelievable. And so we run this symposium project to build this community and try to answer to your question, a social glue between people.
Thank you, Gregorio. Thanks a lot. The symposium is a real symposium, so it's a real meeting that actually is taking place in 2 days in Milano, and every year is taking place in a different place to help also the connection with a different context. I think was very interesting, this connection between the private platform and the public one. Yesterday, the European Cultural Foundation representative talked about the commons, they have a similar idea of a common public space, virtual, digital public space. So, I mean, it's a very interesting also future thinking. Cristina, are you back? Do you want to jump in and say something about this topic? How do we keep the social glue and how art and technology can help us?
Yes, sure. Like this moment in which we were isolated for so long, I think it got us thinking about how to connect regardless the distance and the conditions. So the last months I've been meditating and experimenting with that. And first of all, just to react to all the things that are being said right now, I think that the way that we can strengthen and expand the fabric of these human relationships is also to include this technology with more awareness and understanding of what it does for us and how it changes our relationships and how it connects us. So I would like to talk again with some example about how we spent the time in these months. I was working with a dear colleague, Isa Juchniewicz, looking at the possibility to connect with the other people through a Zoom call. And we made a research on these different platforms that offer also games or possibilities to work with representation. And representation, for example, the deep fake, which is something that it's very exciting for several people now, and also the idea of a dialogue with this hyperactivity of the artificial intelligence and trying to juxtapose to it also a way of creating hybrids and other persons, or creating other kind of fictionalized human beings through human means. So I would like to tell you that this is how I looked in the moment that we started working with with this technology. Isa, for example, started to work with the deepfakes and used my image during a long conversation, and then she confessed that she used it somewhere else in another meeting with some friends. And I felt that this is a terrible attempt against my ultimate intimacy, and I was not being able to be owner of the only thing that I own, which is my presence. And this really shocked me. And we started thinking about how to work with that. And at the same time, I was looking into these other platforms that were dealing with mourning in a digital form. And there is this MySpace platform that is allows you to upload a photograph of that or a relative and animates it. So this also was very shocking. And so we started to create this very simple performance in which we overlapped the performer with the audience member. We overlapped the faces and we created this third person. And we wanted to create this third person with context. We were responding to a website. We found this person does not exist, which collects this or generates the collages of people that don't exist, that are being generated every time you refresh the page. So we reacted to that, and we wanted to create a collage between two persons that also included their lives, their decisions, their regrets, their wishes. And so we started to create these fictional people. So we are working now with this research in OnScene, a platform that it's a website, an archive, and I have this little phrase that Adam Donoval was writing about it. This person does not exist, which was the title of our project, is, in the words of a participant, trippy to say the least. Interestingly, it is the only project presented via OnScene which takes place exclusively within the online space and views its possibilities in a positive light. It utilizes its tools and even technologies like AI and deepfake to explore self-identity and understanding. It is a project that meditates on the diverse dimension of human through a process of collective memory, imagination, and conversation. And we did several experiments. We're still working on it. But finally, the fact that a human is pretending to be an AI. This is reversing the function of it, and it's also creating all sorts of reactions and thoughts around this. And we also included a contract that it's poetic, but still it's a contract in which the person agrees to donate their presence to the making of this, so we can have an archive afterwards. The archive of this person does not exist, with all these people that are being merged and are hybrids of with the real life behind.
Thank you, Christina. Thanks a lot. Wow, it's it's amazing. And I believe in your shock. I believe in your shock when you realized that someone else was using the image. Matt, we have our last 5-6 minutes to try to, with your help, put together all these information and suggestions and proposals. And what is your idea of how art, artists, technology can help also the communities, the social glue, the real people to stick together, though the pandemic put us apart?
So we've got a new appreciation of how society is organized through the pandemic. The idea of the essential workers, the people who actually make society function, has come back into our language, and that I think is a radical shift. There had been a very concerted, discursive effort since the 1980s to suggest that people who are working class are essentially interchangeable parts in a process, and that could be systematized to the point where a society really didn't need to worry about how that operated. And we've been through a process where we've really learned who we actually depend on for our common good, not least of all the health workers who have put their lives on the line for all of us over the last year and a half. For me, that connects to the way in which power seeks new metaphors and new formats of control. And really the whole discussion that we've had today has been sort of nested within a kind of techno-determinist discourse, an idea that technology is the future is technology. There is no point in arguing with it. All we need to do is get there as quickly as possible and compete at national and continental levels about who gets there quickest. Move fast and break things is the cliche Silicon Valley phrase book for these kinds of things, and that power has looked to cloak itself in new ways. I was reading the New York Times this morning about the efforts to tackle Facebook as a monopoly, and the fact that the monopoly laws were written for big oil companies and that they are just not fit for purpose. And we're in a war of language and of metaphors. And for me, the kind of classic example of that is the idea of the cloud. This suggests that information that is in the cloud exists up above us and is essentially immaterial. And I've met more than one person who is absolutely shocked by the idea that information in the cloud is actually in an enormous warehouse data center with a huge power draw. That metaphor of the cloud is a way of concealing how information is being stored and changed. And it's the nature of capitalism that those in power look for new metaphors and new ways of concealing and manipulating power. And we've been through a very radical conceptual shift in the last 20 or 30 years. The internet was a utopian place where immateriality and a leaving behind of our everyday identities was a utopian possibility. All of that has been repurposed and reformatted back into a system that creates new forms of power that are outside of national control and therefore are outside of democratic control. And the work that we have to do now is about how do we find democratic forms that enable us to deal with transnational forms of power.
Wow. Easy one, Matt. Not an easy one. I thank you all so much. I believe this is the start of a second conversation because, I mean, we just started. This topic is very relevant for the future of our lives, is very relevant for the future of the cities where we live and how we are going to live together, with other intelligences as well. So I thank you. I have to thank you because our time is over. I thank you so much, Matt, Cristina, and Gregorio, for your precious contribution to the conversation. I hope we will have the chance to carry on. The next session will take place in a minute live. Unfortunately, we were not live. This is going to be at OGR, but also online, and it's going to talk about the City of the Future Open Call, because Nesta has given a contribution, a grant to artists to work on this topic, City of the Future. And we'll have the chance to talk directly to the artists that had the possibility to work in residency in the last 3 months. Thanks again to my fellow panelists, and hope to see you again soon in digital live and on live. Ciao.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Ciao, ciao.